big changes within the public sector, and just to list some of those here. The Development Corporation being wound up 2 years ahead of original programme in March, and those functions coming back into the Council from March 2012. The East of England Development Agency being wound up. Government Office for the East of England being wound up, and those functions being absorbed into departments. Business Link, major changes within the way we provide Business Link services. The construction of a LEP, Local Enterprise Partnership. This is government's model for businesses, for you to take forward the long-term growth agenda. First word is local. So ours is Just, Essex, Southend, Thurrock, Kent, Medway and East Sussex. So, I wouldn't like to be part of a regional one. But a local enterprise partnership, we have a very tidy little board, I think made up of 44 people. And in order to drive the agenda to be really crystal clear, let's have a small executive group to make policy decisions. That small executive group currently comprising 24 people. I think we've got a bureaucratic, potential bureaucratic nightmare. Actually, a really important message here that government policy will drive investment into the north of England unless we make sure we've got a strong voice for the prosperous southeast, which still needs infrastructure investment. And I think as business leaders, you need to make sure you're feeding through the South Essex representatives and into the LEP to ensure that we articulate and argue the case for continued investment in the east and the southeast. We as a council are trying to put more emphasis on regeneration and economic development, and part of my criticism, if you like, of the way that we've been handling it has been that I think we've had planning-led regeneration, and what we need is regeneration-led planning. So we need to decide what sort of communities we want to create, what sort of jobs we want to create, and lead with a vision of the type of place we want Thurrock to be, and then make sure we've got a planning framework that delivers that. And I think potentially we haven't been hearing enough about what that community of interest should be going forward, and perhaps focused on the bureaucracy and the planning process of getting there too much. So that's quite a big cultural shift within the council. The other reason we're here is to explore our relationship with you as business leaders. How do we get to hear more clearly the issues that you have, the concerns that you face, and then, as last man standing, after all those things have disappeared, the council is in the position of shaping the place of Thurrock. Place shaping is what we do. We have to be making sure that we're articulating those views, whether they be about the services to support the communities and the people that are within that place, or the infrastructure and the employment and the opportunity that is within that place. So that's what the council has to do, and we have to do it by hearing more from you in terms of your views and priorities for investment. So looking forward into today as well, we're also about celebrating what's good about Thurrock. You've heard some of that, you've seen some of that. What is it we need to make sure we don't throw away in order to build the future? What is our vision for Thurrock? What are the opportunities from the regeneration programme? How do we ensure that local people are able to access those opportunities, whether they be as employees or as business leaders? How do we make sure the community and the place of Thurrock works long term? Gathering your views on the regeneration priorities, we'll hear some of that later on, and then thinking about a different approach to business engagement to make sure that we're hearing you and enabling you to articulate those views. Making sure you're aware of all the business support opportunities, and I would say take some time to see the exhibition space, look at what support is available directly to businesses, look at what facilities are available. So for example, High House Production Park, a great conference venue, built using government funding or refurbished using government funding. We need to make sure you know that's available, right the way through to the low carbon programme and European funding that is available to support the individual businesses going forward. So a real plethora of opportunities, and we want to make sure you can access those. And hopefully the beginning of a new conversation between the council and with business. And then at the end of today, we're going to set out a way of continuing the conversation. We don't want you to hear the presentations and then rush off. Ideally, we get you to stay behind, talk to some of the lead officers about issues that concern you, whether they be about environment, environmental health, procurement, how you access council contracts or other public sector contracts, right the way through to transportation, planning, budget, etc. So we will have council officers and partners staying behind on tables to talk about those subjects and more. We'd like to hear your views on those particular subjects if we can during that informal time. What are the future skills that you will need in your business, and how are we, through our relationship with schools and with further education providers, how are we creating the right people to fill those jobs? Transforming our services, because actually we're pretty old-fashioned, the way that we do things. Our technology isn't good enough, and we have too many people doing jobs that could be semi-automated or automated. So bringing the council up to the 21st century and making sure that our own business processes are better. And then working through communities. So making sure that we're engaging with businesses and with the local community about what's going on in their patch. And making sure that we reflect the fact that actually Thurrock is not one community. Thurrock is 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 different communities with different challenges and different opportunities, and making sure that we reflect that in our service. So what I can say to anybody working with the council is, if you don't believe that we want Thurrock to be the dynamic heart of the Thames Gateway, a place of ambition, enterprise and opportunity, and just reflect on Jonathan's use of those words from a 1936 advertisement, because actually we still have huge opportunity. It needs to be a place of ambition, it needs to be a place of enterprise, where communities and businesses flourish. What I say to our 2,000 odd people is, if you don't subscribe to that, don't work here. Go and work somewhere else, because that is the vision of all the elected members representing the local communities. That's what we're trying to create. These 5 priorities have been established and then revisited and re-established through that change of administration. So actually these are our priorities. It is about improving the education and skills of local people, making sure that education goes up from being unacceptably poor to being good. We know that we've got a long hill to climb with taking people from some deprived communities and getting them work ready. We have to make sure that is a key priority of the council and its partners. And you will already see that our secondary school attainment is now above national average, primary school attainment is rapidly improving and is coming out to the bottom quartile. Still not good enough, needs to be above average, actually needs to be around top quartile if we're going to add the value that we need to people's lives within Thurrock in order to create the people that you'll want to employ. Encouraging, promoting job creation and economic prosperity is one of our highest priorities. We have to have a regeneration framework, we have to have council policies that deliver that. What does that mean in practice for us? Going on to ensuring a safe and clean environment, providing and commissioning high quality services, may not be necessarily relevant today, we won't go into that in much more detail, but also building pride, respect and responsibility amongst our communities. Because what we have is massive investment, external investment from the private sector that is still happening despite recession. Most other authorities have had their big regeneration projects put on the shelf, tailored down, halved, quartered in scale. In Thurrock we have some big inward investment regeneration projects that are happening despite the recession. The investment is still happening, and we'll talk a bit about those in detail, but that is very different. We have massive investment coming in DP World and London Gateway Port. I'll say a bit about the specific projects and pick up from the leader. So we have that massive investment going in all of those projects, and a real opportunity to grow business, and grow big business in a way that perhaps isn't available elsewhere given the current state of the economy. But we have a bit of a constraint on that, and that's the bit at the bottom. And most businesses that I talk to, the transport infrastructure is the biggest constraint to growth and to them increasing their market share. So Junction 30-31 needs about £350 million worth of investment. We'll get some of that investment off the back of some of the planning, and those of you that are engaged in those big investments will know that the government is trying to get as much money towards the investment as it can. But actually Junction 30 needs £350 million invested in it, or thereabouts. That's got to be led by government. Can't be led by the council, can't be led by business in the area, it has to be led by government. And Thurrock Council needs to be at the heart of campaigning and arguing for that inward investment from central government. It's an interesting reflection on leadership, that actually if government wants to lead us out of economic downturn, we have to have some investment in national infrastructure, and Junction 30-31 is the biggest issue in terms of national infrastructure investment on the highways network right now. The problem for us is the Highways Agency would spend roughly £50 million on each junction improvement elsewhere in the country, so they say, but we can get 7 junctions improved for the price of doing this one. But actually we can't make the changes to national infrastructure unless they make this investment. So our hierarchy is we need